Okay. And then we're gonna check to see. I think it looks like it's running on Restream. So now I'm just gonna double check that we're good on YouTube. Yes, I see us on YouTube. It looks like we are alive. Join it. Okay. All right. Yay. All right. Well, we're live. How exciting. Yes. Animesh, how in the world are you doing that? I've never seen someone have like a circle, but also a background image.
I just don't know, like something's wrong here.
Oh, so it's not on purpose. Oh,
Not on
okay.
purpose.
Well, it's nice to see your face. I think this is the first time I actually see you.
I had a meeting like with Lucas before. So
I'm
good
not
to see you
Lucas.
too.
I'm not Lucas.
Yeah, first time meeting you actually, yes. First time meeting you.
Like Lucas and I are interchangeable. Like, come on, we're like totally different. He's annoying. I'm amazing. Like totally different people. Okay. I'll try to behave because we're live and I'm supposed to be useful right now. Well, Vishnavi, thank you so much for joining us. I'm always excited to see like also writers join us today, and it's always lovely to see you. So if Animesh, like I know Lucas knows this, but just a reminder for folks watching or for Animesh, so Vaishnavi is one of our current contributors under the mentorship program. So she is from the new category of technical writing that we finally opened this year. So we're excited to have her. All right, so I know that the last time we met, we had as a group, several people, we were discussing how plagiarism works and what is plagiarism, what is not plagiarism. There were definitely like a lot of questions around that in our group. And so we made a stream about that the last time. And I know that a lot of folks found that very useful. So cool stuff. This time around, I don't really have a specific topic that people have requested. So I was thinking that I could simply go to the board and we could kind of just discuss an update of what's the latest that's out there and what do we still need to pick up and just what's going on overall in Spec 3 docs. Does that sound like a good idea? Or does someone here on the call have a question that they would like to go through first? No? Okay. All right, then open source version of retrospective it is. Okay. All right, and so let me know, can you see my screen okay? Yep, okay, cool. So let's go to the website. All right, cool. So we're going to the website because currently we want to see the latest documentation issues that are open related to Spec 3. And so you folks all in the call know, we keep that in the website repository. So here we see pinned at the top the epic issue for all major changes related to Spec 3. So we're going to go ahead and open that one as well. That said, just a quick note for folks watching in case people are like new contributors or they've been a little bit out of tune. Just because this is the one epic issue that specifically says Spec 3 doesn't mean that it's the only documentation that is written with Spec 3. So currently all technical writer contributors, everyone must be writing their documents in line with V3. We are no longer writing with V2 in mind. So these other epic issues that we see here at the top, these both belong to GSAD. And again, because those are current issues, those writers are also only writing with Spec 3 in mind. We do still get that question about whether or not other side things going on in the docs, if those have to be in Spec 3 or if the writers are only working from V2. So I always like to keep clarifying since it'll probably take a while for us to update everything. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at the epic issue for Spec 3 and what tasks are open. I do have here, we see here in the description that there are several tasks opened. I'm going to open a few of them and discuss a little bit about what's going on here. So here we see that the Epic issue has tasks for main features in Spec 3. So for example, request reply, which as most of us know, drastically changed in version 3. Channel decoupling, operation action for pub/sub confusion. So all of these are individual topics that have come up with Spec 3 or new features or changes. And then when you open them, each task, you can see that if we scroll further down to the comments section, Jonas Lagoni has gone through and he has added some of his comments and ideas of what he thinks the kind of documentation that we might need. And when I say the kind, I'm referring right now to, for example, the content buckets. So here we see that Jonas left a comment saying, hey, you know, maybe we need a specific concept page to outline how request reply works from a high level. So we see that he is not just telling us the features to document, but he is also giving us ideas of which content bucket we might need to document for this topic. So we always, I think a lot of people often think of tutorials, but it's good to remember that in our docs, we have currently 6 content buckets: concepts, tutorials, guides, tools, reference, community. We won't be out updating the reference section ourselves not from this Epic issue. This is separate work. So really this Epic issue is covering updating other content buckets such as guides, concepts, tutorials, and tools. As you can imagine, it doesn't really apply so much to community because community is more about processes and workflows as a contributor. So it's not really about how the technology works. So for Spec 3, we would really more expect us to be updating content in these 4 content buckets. So now when we go back to the comment that Jonas made on the request reply task, it probably makes a lot more sense why he's saying, hey, you know, maybe let's make a concept page instead of only thinking of a tutorial. If we go to each one of the tasks, I do know, or at least from what I remember, Jonas has gone through and left comments and information on each one individually. But this is not the only live issues out there for Spec 3. And I did realize that this was another accidental point of confusion. It was brought up to me the other day. So I think that today's call could be a great time to, yay, clarify that confusion. So we have these tasks under this Epic issue, which we see pinned at the top at the website repository. But it turns out that Jonas himself also took the time to document overall things that he noticed we needed to update in the docs. So, you know, folks like Jonas and Sergio went through each page and they identified, wow, this page is completely out of date. Uh-oh, this tutorial definitely doesn't apply. Oh, this code snippet, all wrong, right? Because it's no longer a V3 code snippet. So he went page by page. And then Jonas essentially created a list, a to-do list of, we need to delete this item because this is no longer relevant. Oh, we need to add this to this page because this code snippet is no longer relevant. And then from that extra to-do list that Jonas made on his own, he also went through and literally clicked new issue, and he ended up creating a lot of extra issues for the items that he identified. So this is why you're also going to notice that there are some Spec 3 documentation issues that are open, but that seem to be separate from the Epic issue here titled Create Docs for Spec 3 Release. I'm going to, I think the easiest way to find those, the ones that he created, is literally filtering by author, since Jonas did create these issues. And then I'm going to add the label docs because that'll for sure help us outline the ones that are documentation only, because we know Jonas does a lot of coding, so we don't want to get those we don't want to get those pull requests or issues. So now we see that with this filter, author Jonas area docs, now we can see all of the individual tasks that he created. So does it make sense now, and why there was confusion in the community about, wait, but why do we have these that are not part of this epic issue? Why do these seem to be separate if this is all because of V3? So that's how that happened. So does that make sense so far? I just want to make sure to hopefully clear up any confusion. Does that make sense so far? Yep. Okay, cool. Now, what is something that we can do about this? Because I always think that cleanup is definitely a helpful contributor thing to do. So if you're looking for other ways to contribute in documentation, if I was you, I would, I don't remember with the GitHub UI, but I'm trying to remember if, like, I'm just going to click the first issue right now. And, oh, Cynthia. And I want to see if I can make this can I make this a subtask of my current open issue? I think I can. So I'd have to Google it to remember how to do it or look at the options. But something that would be helpful if you wanted to contribute was grabbing all of these issues and making sure that they are now mentioned in the epic for doc 3 and adding those tasks here. So that is actually one current contribution that you could make, and anyone can do this because it doesn't rely on understanding Spec 3 at all. It's just about Googling how the hell GitHub works. Sorry. So I'm just going to Google right now, for example, make GitHub issue into episode. Go, baby. Go, baby. Oh my God. Sorry. Okay, baby. Jeez. Canella dropped her thing that she's chewing on, and she just kept making this sad noise, like, and I'm like, go get the thing. Dogs. Okay. Would GitHub issue. No, I think make GitHub issue task. I don't know if that's the right thing to Google or not. Not a task list. So I don't know if I'm going to. So this is about issues. And there should be information here about tracking work, and I think about how to turn things not just task lists. So I will add this right now in a comment for us. So we could use some help grabbing miscellaneous docs issues, Spec 3 issues, and adding them all as tasks to the actual epic Spec 3 docs issue. So oops. So I'm gonna add a link here to make it easier for people to contribute to this task if they want to. And then I'm gonna also make sure to add a link to the epic issue where we want to keep all of this. All right, here we go. And then I'll just add a okay. All right. So I know that Animesh has been very, very excited lately contributing to pull requests, and I've seen him leaving comments and wanting to help out and get more involved in docs. You know, Animesh, this would be a great help. So if you wanted to contribute and maybe help with this is another good idea, something that you could do.
I think I can take this up like after the review from another issue. The workflow issue is completed. I want to make sure that that's implemented. Then After it, I can take up this task.
Oh, awesome. Thank you so much, Animesh. And you run into any issues, please go ahead and don't feel shy to DM me on Slack, because that'll definitely be the fastest way to get a hold of me for sure. So yeah, that'd be great. Thank you so much.
Oh, okay,
And
will do.
okay. And so as far as what we still have out there and available for grabs, well, there's a lot, so nobody's gonna get bored, that's for sure. Let's talk a little bit and just give a quick update of what we still have out and ready to be assigned. So folks, first up, message validation guide, updating it for V3. So some folks are not aware of the fact that we do have a few guides already live, not as much as we have in tutorials, but we have two guides. We have validate async API documents and message validation. As we can see in message validation, it does have one tiny code snippet, which of course is outdated, 2.6, that's wrong. So this first issue is literally to update that guide, the message validation guide. What's the next issue? Adapt validate document guide. Oh, well, we just talked about that. So it's actually this document right over here. So in the guides content bucket, we also need to update validate async API documents. And there are a few code snippets in this one, a few more. So we'll have to make sure that this is also updated as well. Something that I really appreciate about Jonas is if you click on the issue, for example, let's say message validation for V3, you can see that Jonas already did some of the work for you. He has already provided the updated correct code snippet to use that is in line with V3. And he has also included main points that need to be updated in that document. So you're not on your own to figure out what am I updating here. He is helping you. He's like, look, here's a code snippet. And remember, we need to re-add this file. So why is he talking about re-adding a file? Okay, we talked about this a few meetings back, but let's go over it again because we have new contributors and now everyone is up to speed. You may remember I said a few minutes ago in the call that as part of the work that Jonas was going through, he made a to-do list where he identified work, page by page in our static documentation, which document no longer applies, which ones need to be updated, etc. So what he's doing is he has we have a feature branch, next major spec. And in this feature branch is where we're putting all of these changes together. And then eventually, when we have all of the new updates and fixes in this feature branch, then this feature branch gets merged into master with many of our changes all in one. So essentially, Jonas in his feature branch is deleted old document pages that are now completely out of date. And he is re-adding them one by one as we are updating them or fixing them. So if a contributor, say, Animesh or Cynthia Vishnavi, somebody picks this up, once they finished, updating the document entirely and they were ready to set it up in a pull request, you would be actually recreating this file again inside the feature branch. So whenever you see that, sorry, my English is kind of like bleh in the morning. Whenever you see this instruction for, hey, make sure to re-add this file, that's what's going on. So essentially, Jonas in his feature bench is, we're deleting all of these old documents and we are re-adding them one by one as we tackle them. So no confusion there, hopefully. And let's move further down and keep discussing what else needs to be updated. All right, so some of you folks might remember that, especially a year ago, we had a Streetlights interactive tutorial in, we had the interactive and the static one. It used to be, both of them were here in tutorials. We currently only have interactive Streetlights. Why? So last year, Google Season of Docs 2022, part of the work was our writers actually ended up replacing the static streetlights tutorial with 4 new tutorials. It was replaced with create a document, generate code, validate your document with Studio, and message validation. That is why we no longer have a static streetlights tutorial. This is part of the work that was done last year for Google Season of Docs. Now, it was outside of the scope of Google Season of Docs last year to also do the interactive one. That was beyond the scope. So this is why we still have the interactive streetlights tutorial. One moment. No, stop. Settle down, please. No, down. Don't do that. Beep, beep. Good. And yes, you're cute, but I'm working right now. They always look the cutest when you're on a work call, don't they? I'm talking about my dogs in case people were not aware of what I'm talking about. Okay, so streetlights tutorial, yes, interactive. So we do have now an open issue for Spec 3 to update this tutorial, the interactive one. But that said, keep in mind that we actually want to maintain the scope and the roadmap that we had set before. So just like we updated the static version of streetlights into these 4 tutorials that now explain this, then we also now are going to have to do that work for the interactive version of the streetlights tutorial. The interactive version of streetlights is hosted in Killer Coda. Some of you folks might have heard in our other communication channels that part of the Google Season of Docs 2023 scope of work for this year is we're actually creating another interactive learning path on Killer Coda as well. We're going to be creating a 100 level introduction. So is it possible that the interactive streetlights, which is an introduction to a sync API, could correlate with some of the work that we're trying to do for Google Season of Docs? I mean, it is possible. It's still like in that stage where we're determining if it makes sense to keep this separate or if we can repurpose it, because we could certainly repurpose it for this 100 level introduction. So that is definitely one important piece to call out. There have been a lot of folks who've been wondering what's going on with the alpha version of the interactive streetlights tutorial. So keep in mind that this is a work in progress that needs to be updated. So ideally, the interactive one will be updated to represent what we have in the static. So interactive will now also have create document, generate code, validate, and message validation in runtime. So that in itself is definitely some work, but I would say that this is not as scary as it seems, you know, creating a whole interactive path, because like I said, the roadmap has always been to do the same work for the interactive version that we did for the static version. And the topics are already covered here in these 4 tutorials. So it should not be that hard to now do that work for the interactive version. Okay, so that's what's going on with Adapt Streetlights interactive tutorial for V3. Let's move it along. What else do we have out there for Spec 3 docs? Adapt Studio document validation tutorial for V3. Oh, well, this is actually the one that we were just discussing. This is one of the document tutorials that replaced the static streetlights tutorial last year. As you can, as some of you folks, or most of you are aware, there is more than one method to validate async API applications, documents, and messages, right? So this tutorial is focused on validation only specifically with the Studio tool. If you haven't used Studio yet, you're not living, because this is a really cool tool. I mean, you can actually visualize your events and better understand your document. So I definitely recommend you checking out Studio as a document writer if you have not used Studio yet. So this is the other tutorial that also needs to be updated. And here we see that, of course, it has several code snippets. Ooh, 2.5. Yes, this definitely needs to be updated, doesn't it? All right, so that's what's going on with that one. Moving along to the next issue, create a Sync API document tutorial. Oh, that one is the other one. So this is the other tutorial that we have, create a Sync API document. So this also needs to be updated. And here we see, outdated code snippets 2.5. But again, that should be pretty easy because I imagine that, yep, Jonas also helped us here. So here you see that he took the time to update the code snippet for all of these. And again, instructions on what needs to change. So really, Jonas did actually a really good job here to where any new contributor will not struggle to get started. Oh, yep, Animash.
Can you please open the previous issue? I had a confusion in the point.
Create a Sync API document.
Yeah, in the instructions, there is a second bullet point, like the adapt the async API document snippet. So what does it mean?
It means update the code snippet because it's wrong and it needs to be updated to Spec 3.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, for sure. It's funny, right? Because I can see the confusion there because of the words. If he had said code snippet. So I think he might have made a mistake. Maybe he meant to write code snippet, but he wrote document snippet. So maybe that's where the confusion lies in. Is he in the call actually? I think he's in the call. I thought I saw him join, unless I made that up. Yes, he is in the call. So if I'm wrong, he can correct me, but I'm pretty sure he meant to say code snippet there.
He says he's hiding.
Hiding. Well, smart man, I can be pretty scary. I understand. Somebody has to keep Jonas in line. So you know how it goes. I'm always ready to volunteer and be of service to my community. Okay. Moving on. Oh, did that completely answer your question, Animesh? Are you good?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you.
Cool. All right, so moving on, and we're actually almost done. Adapt servers tutorial for V3. Servers tutorial. Let's click on this one and see what's going on. Yes, so getting started servers. Got it. This is part of the getting started. All right, so under tutorials, blah, we might remember that we have a quick start. We don't call it a quick start. We call it getting started. Some people call their quick starts getting started. Doesn't really matter. The point is our quick start also needs to be updated to be in line with V3. So we can see that what Jonas did was, because he can tell that quick start is a subcategory with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 documents in this subcategory, then Jonas, I believe very smartly and very organized, he made a issue for each one of those. So instead of making one huge one for the entire getting started quick start, he made an issue for introduction, event driven, coming from API, servers, etc. So this way, it's definitely like a lot cleaner to just, update one page at a time. So that's what the servers tutorial is in reference for. This is part of the getting started quick start. Adapt service tutorial. Why does this seem to be duplicate? What did you do here, Jonas? Did you mess up your own work? I've been complimenting you a lot. Like I would hate for this to go downhill now. Can't compliment Jonas anymore, not if he confuses people. Why do we have 2 adapt service tutorials? Getting started servers. This looks like a duplication. Yeah, Jonas, I think this is a duplicate. Do you see what I'm saying here, Jonas?
Now the question is, which is the correct one?
Yeah, I don't know if it's a duplicate. Maybe they're both wrong. No, just kidding.
I see some changes in the code snippet, like if you compare.
Well, he shouldn't have 2 for the same. That doesn't make any sense. So because it says here, this is tutorials getting started servers, and then we click on this one, and it also says tutorials getting started servers, 1859, 1860.
I think the 1860 is like more descriptive, the code snippet one.
So it looks like we needed to close one of these. Jonas, are you alive or are you just dead? So do you agree that this is a duplicate?
I'll take a look.
Cool, because then if it's a duplicate, we can close one of them here. And if so, then maybe we'll just follow Animesh's suggestion to keep 8060, which seems to have a more detailed code snippet. Might be a better example to choose from.
I'm pretty.
It definitely looks like a
I
duplication.
think I just. I think I forgot to change the. No, there's one there. It might actually just be a duplicate then.
Yeah, no, because here in the description, they both outline the same document. So
That makes some sense.
yeah, it's definitely a duplicate. Unless you see something magical, otherwise, I think we should close 1859.
No, that's actually the right one, I think.
Really? Why?
Yeah.
Why is this one right?
Because the other ones contains too many examples, like too many channels, too many operations.
Why is more examples bad? Usually the more detailed code snippet, the better.
Because the tutorial in itself is just explaining servers. Channels, operations has nothing to do with the server, so it doesn't make any sense to have multiple. At least I don't think so.
Okay. This is my company broker. Is the server
Yeah, I don't
section here? This is cooler than the one you have here, though, I think. Or is it the same? I can't, let's see, production, post protocol description.
There's some security details added.
Yeah, I like this more. So actually, I think we can delete from this description the stuff that you say is not relevant. So you're saying channels is not relevant? Operations? What is not relevant? Schemas?
So if you take a look at this server's tutorial, right, like the current code, you can see that there's no information about security, and that's why I didn't include it in the issue. But if you want to update it to include security, sure.
I think that's better. I mean, since we're updating these, small improvements, I think are great to be able to do. Since we don't need components, I'm going to delete the sections of your code snippet that you say are irrelevant. I'm going to remove operations. And I'm only going to keep channels and servers because that was in the other original tutorial.
You're gonna need you need this as well. You need one channel and one operation for it to make sense.
Oh, you need an operation as well?
Yes.
Now you tell me. Okay, so. Only operations and then I'm good? Jonas?
I don't know. I don't know what you changed.
I deleted operations, I deleted components, and I deleted schemas. So to confirm, for this document, do we only need operations, channels, and servers?
And security, yeah. Let me edit.
Guys, I think, like, folks, I think it's not much the application, probably the problem that the title was not updated, because the thing is, when you look on the website below servers, you have another document that talks explicitly about security in the server. And
it's probably that one.
And when I see the list of all these adapt issues, there's no adapt security.
Yeah, you're
So
right.
let's change this to security, the other one.
Yeah, the one that was much more detailed was probably the one that should be for the security. That's why security was there.
Yes.
Nice. Adapt.
But also
Thank
be past error.
And it's server security, right? Specifically, server security. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And is that still in servers or no? It should be adding security. So let's update the URL. All right, so now this is correct. For the future, let's use the phrase code snippet because when you wrote document snippet and copied it over, it has caused a lot of confusion. So just a quick heads up, Jonas.
Sure.
All right, cool. So now, well, this is awesome. We actually got some useful work done today. I love it that we didn't just like sit and yammer at each other for an hour. Adapt server security tutorial. And now we have adapt servers. Perfect. Amazing. So if I refresh this, now people will no longer be confused. Great. All right, cool. So then moving on, adapt async API documents tutorial. So same thing. Oh, actually, I'm not sure if it's the same one. Let's click on it. Yes, getting started async API documents. So this is part of the quick start, getting started. Hello world, also part of the quick start. Open API, another part of the quick start. So here we see quick start is divided into these issues. And then it says removes V2 spec links for V3. So let's open this one. This is a little bit different. So let's see what he's saying. Remove all links to other V2 spec docs, so only V3 and onwards are visible. So he's referring to the reference content bucket specifically. So this is redirects or what exactly, what in reference are we going to be updating? Oh, remove all V2 docs from reference. Wait, I don't think we should remove previous versions. Usually specifications keep old versions just for, I don't think we should be removing previous specification documentation from the reference content bucket. We should still have, you know, the current one and previous ones.
But that's what we will have the other instance of old website for, right? That's why. So we will not have any single document talking about V2. That's why it doesn't make sense to keep references as well. We're gonna have this banner. I don't remember what was agreed, but there was supposed to be a banner. If you're interested with V2, then it's v2.asyncAPI.com. I don't remember what we agreed, but yeah, that was.
Yeah, remember we talked about that for overall the documentation that is, of course, all in line with the previous versions. But when we're talking about specifically the reference content bucket, it is a good practice to include documentation of the previous versions. So it does concern me a little that you want async API/docs to only have spec 3. I do think it's important for people to have in the reference only previous versions. That is normally what is done. So that's something that's interesting.
We could also just add a single entry to version 2 and then link to the version 2 website. So instead of having 2.6, 2.5, 2.4, we just have one that says version 2 and then link to the old site or new site.
Okay, so you're saying that, for example, all of these would be removed and this would say 2.0, and then here we would just say, hey, look, have a look at the website where we have old V2 docs.
Yeah.
How long are we going to maintain that website?
We're not. It depends on what you mean by maintain. Because
Keep it alive. Keep it alive.
as far as I remember, we talked about just freezing the website in the state that it is for version 2, and that's it. And then not touching it again.
Right, but what I'm talking about is how long is it going to be alive? So are you thinking of like, oh, we'll keep the URL open for a year and then or
until no one is using version 2, which means never.
Forever.
Yeah, forever.
Oh, sorry, what did you say? Which means what?
It basically just means forever.
Okay, so no rushing plans of we're going to have v2.com live for 6 months and then poof, we delete it.
Nope.
Okay, well, I guess that could work. Okay, this is great having these calls because it's definitely like, look at how much good information and questions we're getting out. So this is really useful. All right, adapt GitHub action tooling page. Let's see what else Jonas found here. All right, so this is actually not docs. So it looks like this is a mistake to have docs labels on my end. Because if this is tools, GitHub Actions, this is not documentation. So I think I made a mistake here. Do you agree, Jonas, that I made a mistake here? Looks like it, right?
I don't know.
You see how it says tools?
Sure.
So tools is not document, right?
To me, it is when it's on the website. Then everything is docs. But that's just
Well,
me.
my dear lovely engineer, it is not. But we love you anyway. Yeah, so this is to clarify. So here we see in the main navigation tools, and Jonas identified, hey, you know what? GitHub Actions under tools has outdated information. This also needs to be updated. So this is a good issue, but this is not documentation. So I made a mistake and I added the docs labels. So I have removed them to eliminate that mistake. And then I'm gonna actually clear myself on this one because otherwise it'll be more confusing for me as well. All right, cool. And then moving back to the issues, we have one left. Let's see, adapt front page animation. Oh wait, I think, oh, I think I made a mistake here too, because this is, do we even still have that animation? I don't even remember anymore. Oh, yes, we do. Wow. I feel bad now. I didn't even know if it was still there or not. Excuse me. I like that we still have it, but yeah, you're right. This is outdated. We can see 2.6. Okay, so I made another mistake. I don't know what I was thinking the day that I added labels to this one. Maybe I was like, well, Jonas just created a whole bunch of docs issues. So just like a crazy person went in and just assumed they were all docs everywhere.
Well, they are docs.
That's not a document. That's an animation on the website homepage. That's not a document.
Well,
No, not well. That's not a document.
well,
Not well. It's not
potato,
a document.
potato.
Jonas, you stick to coding where you're and where we appreciate
I mean,
you.
you agree with me because you added the labels.
I literally just said I made a mistake, so clearly I do not agree with you. Okay, so, oh, actually, looks like we actually went through all of them. Good work, Alejandra and audience. Okay, cool. So I really like that we were able to do this because at least speaking for me, I know that when I want to contribute or when I join a new team, I can feel a little bit shy when I see a huge list of things to do and I myself have not really had an explanation of what's going on. So I'm hoping that by going individually and speaking about each one of these tasks, it'll feel less daunting and maybe more exciting to pick up because now we see that it's not as scary. Jonas added so much background context for us. Like he even wrote the code snippets. He really took a lot of the hard work away. So hopefully that inspires people to feel less nervous. So I'm going to go ahead and share this link again here and let's see, list of Spec 3 docs to update. No, Spec 3 docs issues to update. Okay, and it's just nice to have it there again. All right, cool. Well, that concludes going over our open source version of a retrospective for Spec 3 specifically. I noticed that timing is going very well. We technically have 13 minutes left. Does anyone have questions or something they wanted to bring up? Vaishnavi.
Yeah, hi. What I wanted to discuss was for the mentorship program as well. We had created a doc outlining, different topics that we could possibly write on. Would that kind of overlap with the issues that have already been raised? Like I saw the tutorial one, for example, and we plan to create documentation for tutorials too. So would they be the same thing or do we link it to the same epic? What do you think?
Oh, good question. I'm glad you reached out. So no, definitely going to be very separate work. You are the mentorship and the GSOT group is creating completely new documentation, and it is not in line with, it is not related to these updates that we are describing.
Okay, but they are V3, right? I know we'd be focusing more on protocol specific documentation, but would they be redundant by any chance if they're also working on tutorials and we're also working on tutorials? Would we need a separate discussion for that?
No, because we're very careful to not create I was gonna say we're careful not to create duplicate issues, but I literally just updated an issue. That was never mind. We're not so good at it after all. No, because so the topics that you have in our document so far for the protocols and the workflows that we do with our protocols are new topics that are not what we have covered so far. So we do have, for example, a request reply issue where we say, hey, that could be a new document. I do see that particular one, maybe that one be an exception to like, hey, you know what, maybe this should, this is really under the mentorship scope. So this one is kind of already going to be handled by us. But other than that, not really. No, I just, it's very different work because it's as you may remember, we identified some workflows about things that we do with Kafka and WebSocket, and it's things like payload or streaming or more documentation about security. As you saw, we have one tiny little document about security. We don't really have a lot of context or background. And so, yes, we do have some tutorials, but we have a need for a lot more tutorials. So just because we're creating new tutorials doesn't mean that they're overlapping with Spec 3. And, we are now all aware of all these changes. So Vajnavi, yourself, let's say that you were assigned request reply, you could be like, oh, look, this is literally the same thing that we just discussed. So Alejandra, it looks like mentorship program is taking care of this one. And then, for sure, we can close it. But I don't want us mixing and matching an epic issue for mentorship work with this one, because then that's just going to generate confusion because it'll be hard to track two different things. So that's why we want to have epic issue for the GSOD work, epic issue for the mentorship. And then when we're creating all the tasks for the mentorship issue, epic issue, we'll of course have to double check and make sure we don't make mistakes or duplicate things for sure. Was that helpful or?
Yes. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, cool. What else? Does anybody else have any questions or excitement they wish to share? Animesh.
I want to ask, is it okay to give reviews on issues or PRs marked with GSOT label?
Good question. So I would say that anyone is welcome to help review content, because the reality is it's hard sometimes for technical writers to find enough reviewers. Sometimes it can be a real struggle. It's actually definitely a pain point for writers. So no, you don't have to be part of the GSOT program to, as a contributor, want to help out and, leave a comment and review GSOT work. That said, though, Animesh, I have noticed that sometimes you get a little bit passionate, excited, and you can kind of accidentally leave 20 comments instead of just like 5 succinct ones. So if you're open to it, I would love to have a quick mentorship call with you to help give you some best practices for reviewing documentation pull requests. And then you can feel like even twice as useful if you're open to that.
I would love that.
Oh, awesome. Yes. And we'd love to have your reviews because, like I said, it's sometimes hard to find enough reviewers. So Animesh, at some point after this call, if you could please DM me days or times that work for a call, and then we can get set up, and we will love and appreciate your contributions as well.
Yeah, we'll let you know.
Cool. And just remember that I'm not Lucas, so not interchangeable.
Yeah, I'll keep that in mind. Sorry.
Oh, Fran, Jonas, and Sid are like, what is she talking about? Because so earlier
I just in the previous meeting I just got off the hook by saying that not bad background and some excuses. I still remember that.
Oh, no, it was funny. Just essentially we were on the call and I happened to say to Animesh, oh, I think this is the first time I see you, it's nice to see your face. And Animesh said to me, no, I've seen you before. I was just on a call with Lucas. I'm like, am I Lucas? We're not interchangeable. I am my own person. So I was just giving him a rough time because I thought that was pretty funny. All right, cool. Any more exciting questions or thoughts or opinions, criticisms, critique? No. Okay, cool. All right. Well, we have, of course, yes, Joe.
No, I just wanted to know if we have some kind of timeline for all the PRs that seem to be ready to be merged, or at least are ready for final review.
Can you clarify which PRs?
Anything that isn't draft.
That's very vague. Like, are you talking about code? Are you talking about GSOD, mentorship? Like,
Everything, all PRs that are on the website that are not draft, basically.
Well, I mean, I can't answer for anything that's not in draft mode on the website. I can only answer for stuff that I know is going on. And as far as like, when are we going to merge GSOD work or mentorship? Just because it's out and reviewed once doesn't mean it's ready to merge. It takes more than one round of review. So,
So what I'm referring to is like it seems like there's a lot of PRs that are ready to be merged, and I'm not saying that you should review them, but just in general, is there an idea on the website to merge some of these PRs, especially since we have 64, seems like 64 ready to be reviewed and merged PRs in the website. It seems like a lot that isn't finished.
Like I said, I can only answer for documentation stuff, and our current document projects are ongoing and take several months. So we're not going to be closing our current document projects and merging super fast, because that's just not the way the programs work. It's definitely more of a month by month work.
So anything that's GSOD is not ready to be merged? Is that the interpretation?
The interpretation is, if it's not merged, it's not ready to be merged yet. It's really the simplest way I can put it for you. Trust me, it's not fun for us either. I would love to be able to just merge everything, but it's not ready. We have a lot going on.
So just so this is just a suggestion, I guess, is don't create the PRs as ready to be actually reviewed.
No, they
So
are
it looks
ready
like
to be reviewed. They are reviewed, but they undergo several rounds of review. Does that make sense?
okay, gotcha. So even though that they are reviewed and it seems like they're done, they still need to be further reviewed again.
Correct. They undergo several rounds of review. I mean, trust me, I would be over the moon if after one review we were like, yes, all done and merged. But unfortunately, it doesn't really quite work like that.
Why not?
Oh, well, are you like a super powerful computer that gets everything done right the first time? No mistakes?
No, not at all. But as soon as they're merged, they can be small edited as well.
No, that's not going to happen. So I get where you're coming from, but this feels more like a fun discussion for offline. It's not really Spec 3 docs related. Because this is more about like, wait, why do some things take longer to merge? And I mean, I could tell you, well, open source, but you already know that because you work with me. But Spec 3 related documentation, do we have questions about getting started or picking it up, or confusion about, oh, I don't know how to do my tasks, something like that? No. Okay, cool. All right. So before I forget, Mafusa is not online, but I'm just suddenly thinking about her. I was wondering, Fran, Sergio, have you had a chance recently to review some of her pull requests? Has she reached out to you yet? I wanted to make sure that I'm following up on that and that I didn't forget.
I did review, I think a couple of them, maybe, or no, maybe just one of them, I think, and left some comments there. Mainly, my concern was that I wasn't sure if it should be a concept page or not. Like I was pinging you on the PR, by the way. Like
So, yeah, I saw that.
And I don't remember what else I reviewed, but because I've been reviewing 2 more from from RDS as well.
Oh, Ridesh, yes. Yeah. Okay. Actually, I'm so glad you brought that up. If I may, Fran,
Yeah.
I want to show you something super quick, and this is for your eyes. Well, actually, for everyone, of course, because they're here. But anyway, so you, Fran, I'm so glad you brought this up. I'm so glad you brought this up because I wanted to help clarify that confusion, because I understood your question, but I think visually it'll make a lot more sense. So I know that you were wondering, wait, is this a concept page? Does this belong here, or does this belong in a separate content bucket? So, right, because we have all these content buckets, right? So Fran, in one of RGSOD pull requests, he saw, so we are documenting the async API document sections in detail. That is currently one of the core GSOD projects, Fran. And it was already like determined, voted, outlined that we are documenting the async API document. I know it's kind of like a tongue twister, documenting the document. And this is going to be a subcategory under concepts, okay? So just like getting started is a subcategory under tutorials, we're gonna have a new subcategory under concepts that outlines all the main features and at a high level and functionality of how the async API document works. Now, of course, as you know this yourself, being Fran, the async API document has a lot of sections to document: structure, variables, channel, dynamic channel names, operations, security, adding messages, yada, yada, yada. So you can see all of this here. So that is why you saw those pull requests, because this is in line with our work in GSOD. This is going to be a subcategory under the concept page. And in our concept pages, as you can see here, the concept pages define concepts and features and capabilities. So this is going to be more at a high level. And it's not a tutorial where it's walking step by step in building a thing, completing a thing. So essentially, for GSOD, for this one epic issue, we're going to have a async API document as a subsection, and each one of these is its own document. And since we are teaching at a high level the capabilities and how it works, this is why each one of these introduces each topic with a diagram and a code snippet. So hopefully that makes a lot more sense about the direction of where we're going with that.
It will not be me who question how you organize this, because I have no idea on how to structure docs. But I find it confusing. That's why I mentioned it. So just for instance, the title of the issues say, or of the pages say, adding messages, adding servers. So concepts to me are nouns, not verbs, right? So you want to learn the concept of a message, of a server. But if you have like at the high level capability of async API on how to add servers, how to add messages, if you go to the guides content bucket, it says exactly that. It's at high level capability of async API. It seems to me more like a guide, because it has the verb, because it has the verb in the title. It's like you teach me how to add, or like how adding messages or how adding servers is done, but it's not really a concept. That's why that's my feedback, right? So
no, yeah, for sure. Let me just quickly explain though, because I can tell that you didn't realize this. So to clarify, guides are only troubleshooting advanced topics. So that's actually a common misconception, and oftentimes people kind of like misuse guides. So guides are only troubleshooting advanced topics. So we are not troubleshooting, we are teaching beginners what the async API document is and what the pieces inside of the document are and what function they serve and how to implement them. And so that's why it's not a guide. However, if you had, for example, Fran, a list of these are the top 3 troubleshooting issues I always run into with my async API document, that would be a guide. Does that make a little bit more sense about the guides?
Yeah.
Specifically?
Yeah. I mean, if you frame it like this and that's your framework, that's completely fine. And like I said, I'm not going to question this. Just saying that by looking at the website where you have all the buckets, all the content buckets,
Mhm.
guides doesn't mention anything about troubleshooting, right? So you probably want to add that there in that case.
Oh, that's good feedback. Thank you for that. You're right. So like Fran says, when we go to the homepage, it says our guide section teaches async API capabilities at a high level, but it does not clarify that this is for troubleshooting. So this is actually good feedback because this mistake caused confusion. Fran was like, hey, what's going on here? Yeah, good feedback. So actually, let me write a note so I don't forget. Follow-up action item from your feedback. Action from Fran, feedback in call. There's a mistake in the, okay, yes. There is a mistake in the description of the guides card in the docs homepage. Does not clarify it is for troubleshooting. I'm so glad you brought this up. Thank you for that.
Just to clarify, but it's not just for troubleshooting, right? It's one
Yes,
troubleshoot.
guides is for troubleshooting advanced scenarios. If you are not troubleshooting an advanced scenario and instead you want to teach me just a regular process, that is a tutorial. But a tutorial requires step A to step B completion. A guide does not require building anything. So you could build something if you wanted in a guide, but that's not the purpose of a guide. It's that would be a tutorial.
But guide is about guiding, not only troubleshooting. Like, I mean,
No, not
we
under
have
the framework we're
we have
using.
two guides that are not about troubleshooting. Validate async API documents, message validation, and they're not
They are.
troubleshooting.
So essentially, this is I mentioned that this is troubleshooting and advanced case scenarios. So for example, people who are using async API may know that there are several ways to document something, but sorry, not document, validate something. There are several ways to validate a document, but they may not really know all the different ways that there is to do that. And some people do struggle in validation. So we created a guide specifically that showcases at a high level the different ways to validate information. But you'll notice that the guide does not have a scenario where we start with nothing and by the end we have finished building a thing.
Yeah, but it's not troubleshooting as well. It's guide, like it's a guide that guides you like what are different ways of doing stuff. But it's like there's nothing about trouble, like depends what people understand as troubleshooting. But for me, troubleshooting means exactly what the word says, troubleshooting. Like there's a trouble and I'm solving a trouble, but it's for me, it's the guides that we wrote, like even the validate async API documents, it says the guide teaches multiple ways to validate the async API document. So it basically guides you what are, like, depending on your use case, you apply a different solution, but it's not troubleshooting, right?
It is. So for example, do you notice how when you go to validate async API documents and for example, it starts telling you how to validate with Studio, it says errors are shown in your document by yada yada. When it starts telling you about things like errors, that is also considered part of troubleshooting. Now, to your point, I like what you're going with this in that I feel like this feedback serves to help us improve our guides better. So to be very transparent, last year, these two guides were heavily influenced by Lucas. He really wanted these two guides. And so I kind of didn't really know a better place to put them in the sense that they were clearly not tutorials. And some of the topics covered were troubleshooting. So it made more sense to put them under guides. So I think that this feedback is good because it's, first of all, it made us realize that we needed to improve the description of the guides content bucket card. But I also see that from this conversation, we're noticing improvements for the guides that are currently there. Because if there's still questions and confusion, that means there's room for improvement. So I also see this as a call to action to refine what we have there, make sure that it's actually clearly for troubleshooting. but I see both Animesh and Fran want to say something.
Just a line from my side that at most places I have seen explicitly mentioned that this is a troubleshooting guide. It explicitly mentions there.
Cool. Yeah, that's what I thought.
And we'll love also to ask, like, are we still following the Ataxis framework?
Yes, that's correct. That's our framework.
Because I'm reading about the how-to guides, just out of curiosity on their website, and it doesn't mention anything about troubleshooting. I think I can find it. All right, so I was wondering if we are derailing here. Just having a look. Not for this meeting, definitely, but
So I can definitely help you out with that later about the Atraxis framework. But yeah, you're right. It is 8:39, so I want to make sure we're not just derailing accidentally into.
Yeah.
But you know, it's also like a good question though, because like if this is the only docs open meeting we have, then it's also kind of like the only place where these questions are going to come up. So yeah, we could also discuss this. Okay, so tutorials versus how-to guides. What's the difference between a tutorial and a how-to guide? So I'm actually going to recommend that you read this, I think, instead, because this is, I think, more to the point. I added it to a thread. So this tells you what tutorials and guides have in common and what the differences are. What's the distinction? So this is good because
sorry, you pasted the link somewhere, or?
Yes, I put it in our thread in Slack because otherwise
Slack,
it'll be lost in Zoom. But yes, and I mean honestly, this is a question that is what's the word in English? I don't want to say the word argued because it makes it sound like people don't like each other, but discussed. This is a topic point that is often discussed with much passion, even among the technical writing community. So some people in the technical writing community love the Atraxis framework. Some people absolutely hate it. And the people who hate it do sometimes complain and say, well, I don't get the difference between a guide and a tutorial. I think the framework gets it wrong and is not very clear. So I don't think that there is such a thing as a perfect framework. I think that doesn't exist, you know? But I believe in identifying the best thing I can and then tweaking it for my needs. So I think this is a good discussion. Like maybe even the next Spec 3 docs could be, hey, let's take a talking point to discuss how we visualize and how we understand guides versus tutorials. Because, you know, just because we have using the Atraxis framework doesn't mean that we can't adapt it to our use case. So you notice that the Atraxis starts with 4 content buckets, but we have 6. Clearly, we are very capable of adapting it to our use case. So we could have further discussions and really, as a group, as a community, discuss what do we think qualifies as a guide? What do we think classifies as a tutorial? Like we could also ourselves, you know, decide that for our community. That could be another discussion we could have for sure. And the guides section is so small that it's kind of like at a good point to make major changes, you know, like I feel like it's not a blocker to bring up these questions so that it doesn't seem like we're just saying, this is a framework, shut up and do what we say. This is what we're doing. I don't care about your opinion. No, sorry if I'm rambling too much, but I don't want to be rude. Does anybody else have more questions or things that they wanted to say? Okay. All right, so then in the next Spec 3 docs meeting, unless somebody suggests otherwise, I'll add a talking point to discuss as a community how we understand guides versus tutorials. And we could have literally a discussion ourselves and kind of decide what we think about it. Whoa, Fran looks scared now, but you brought this up.
I'm gonna miss the next one.
Okay, but you know what, Frendo, like you brought up some points that, you know, other people in the community, in technical writing community as well, bring up sometimes. So you're not alone in your way of thinking. So I'm sure that other people will have their thoughts and opinions, and
Yeah.
we'll get new ideas about improving it for us.
And I'm getting old and grumpy, so don't listen to me so much. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been grumpy for like, I was gonna say it started in my late 20s, but then I realized, no, you've been grumpy your whole life. Don't lie. Your whole life, Alejandra. Don't lie. No, yeah. I think this is like hard because as an architect, this is like a really like passionate topic to me, where as an architect, I care deeply that we don't make mistakes. But I also love that we are all as a community getting interested in docs, and it's not Alejandra the only one who cares. Like, I love that now Fran is like, wait a minute, I have opinions about architecture too. What about this? What about that? That's exciting because it means that like overall the community is getting passionate about their docs. They're not just saying, oh, that's for the writers, you know, they're like, hey, I care about this too. So that's exciting. So even if you don't join us in the next meeting, we'll still bring up the topic, and I'm sure we'll still have a good discussion. And my goal is that we'll still get action items from it. So thank you for bringing that up. Now we all know that there's more room for improvement in our guides as well, and determining the roadmap for the guides. Okay, so I feel like I should shut up and stop the meeting because it's 8:45 and I don't want people to hate the Spec Docs meeting by going too late. Thank you everyone for being here. Thank you for being so interested and for adding to the discussion. Really, really exciting. Like, you have no idea how excited I am that people join and have opinions and thoughts. It's so exciting. So thank you. I hope you have a good rest of your day, and I'll see you all later.